Time now is 6 o'clock. Call this meeting to order. The Board of Education, regular session, which is our business meeting. This is a meeting which occurs in public. First item is to approve the agenda, which you seem to have before you. So we need a motion to approve, please.
So moved.
So moved, Mr. Curtis.
Second.
Second, Mr. Ransom. All in favor, please raise your hands. And passes 5-0. Next are the minutes approval. We'll need a motion to vote on the minutes from July the 19th. Public millage hearing 1, July 19th, public millage hearing 2, July 26th, public millage hearing 3, and the August 2nd work session. We have a motion to approve.
I move they be approved as written.
Ms. Argo has made that motion.
Second.
Second, Ms. Parrish. All in favor? Please raise your hands. That passes 5-0. Next are recognitions.
Good evening, Mr. Superintendent and board members. No need for you to come forward this evening. I just wanted to note that outside here in the hallway, the artwork is provided by Malcolm Bridge Middle School and their art instructor is Jessica Johnston. Thank you.
Thank you. Next on our agenda is points of pride. Welcome Mr. Mike Eddy and staff, I assume. Malcolm Bridge Middle School, I believe I've heard of it.
Good evening. Appreciate the opportunity to speak with y'all. Tonight, we want to just kind of highlight a few things from Malcolm Bridge, particularly what we're going to be focusing on this year. I do want to thank Dr. Vaughn, Dr. Smith are here with us, and then Abby Thurston will be joining me in part of this presentation as well. So we're really excited this year, especially welcoming back all of our students. Digital learners as well as new students to Malcolm Bridge. You know, we've got several sixth graders that are joining us this year, obviously. And we identified a couple of things that we know that we need to do a little bit better job with, but we felt like we've done a good job, but there's always an opportunity to improve upon it. So we kind of outlined this year that what our focus is going to be is, for us, one, is our student achievement and growth, specifically in literacy. So we noticed, looking at our students, that we didn't get quite the results that we wanted to this past year. So we knew as a school we need to kind of join together, and we also understood that when you start talking about literacy, this is not just English language arts. This is all content areas. Everybody reads. So we've kind of been working through that process and coming up with our plans and how we're going to be able to do that through the whole school. We're proud that the teachers all stepped up and have agreed that this is something we all need to be working on. Now that we've opened up our schools again, we're excited about having some other community members come back out to us and start doing some other presentations. We've got some great resources that we haven't been really necessarily able to tap on in person. And so we know that that's something that we want to be working on this year and welcome back in, because it's all about those experiences the kids take away. And we want to make sure we provide as many of those as possible. And the last point was to look at our school culture and our climate. Again, we think that it's a very good culture and climate. But there's always areas that we can improve upon. This year, one thing we did, taking the lead from Oconee Middle School, is that we offered for our sixth grade the first camp. Oconee Middle for several years has offered their warrior camp, phrase camp, I believe, on a Saturday. And so we noticed that, and particularly the results that they get, and particularly with their parents. And I've heard a lot about that the last few years, heard about it when I was at High Shoals. And so this gave us an opportunity to do the same thing with our sixth grades. And much like Keith and his team has done, we've got the same kind of positive feedback from them. So that's just something we did. We also offered that opportunity to our new students that are in 7th and 8th grade. And for us, that was around 50 or 60 kids. So they all got together on that Saturday and were able to not only do through some sessions in the morning with teachers, but the parents were a part of 7 different rotating sessions with our other staff members, talking to them about important things that we want them to know about coming to middle school. So we were really excited to offer that opportunity for them. So we've got some videos a part of this. You know, it's often best said by giving it to teachers and students to relay and discuss. And so we're going to talk a little bit about our literacy goal. Catherine Barnett is a 6th grade teacher. She's also our language arts chair this year at Malcolm Bridge.
One initiative MEMS is taking on this year is literacy. We want our students not just to understand how to read, be able to analyze the text, and use reading. We want them to love reading. We want them to leave our classrooms and to be excited about what they're going to discover next. So with that in mind, our 8th grade ELA teachers introduced the project Book Love to their students, where the students pick out books that interest them and they share those books with their peers through presentations in the classroom to encourage a reading-rich environment. And so looking towards the future, this is our goal for our students, is not just to have them reading, but to have them engaged in reading and to love what they're doing. So for 2021-2022, MEMS is working towards a goal of literacy.
So you heard a little bit from Catherine about what we're going to be doing in terms of our literacy, and we know that obviously the integration of using nonfiction, which also leads to us to those lifestyle scores and improving those. But we also talked about that not only can we attack it from that part of literacy as a team, but we also need to go back and try to look at what the rigor has to be. And when we're given assessments, have we really gotten to a point where we're assessing kids what they know? And so all this, the discussions we've had from our digital learners to our in-person one kind of prompted so many conversations this year that have been super positive for us, and I think it's putting us really on the right track for this school year. We identified, as I said early on, that we've got to do a better job of making sure that we're promoting literacy across all content areas. It's not just one area, it's everybody's involved in this. And so our social studies teachers have really worked hard at that, and I wanted to share with you, they're really excited this year about what they're going to be doing in terms of working with our ELA teachers, not just on writing, but particularly what they're doing with reading. So I wanted to share a little bit. This is Erin Dobbs, is a 6th grade teacher, and then Jessica Loshi. Miss Loshi is also our social studies chair.
Hi, I'm Jessica Loshi. I'm Erin Dobbs. We're going to tell you about some of the exciting things we're doing in social studies at Malcolm Bridge this year. We are going to focus on growing students' literacy skills. And in 6th grade, social studies is going to do a cross-curricular unit with the ELA, and they're going to read a novel called Milkweed. In 7th grade, we're going to do the same thing through a informational writing piece where social studies and ELA will work together. And then in 8th grade, students are going to read a novel in their ELA class about civil rights. And then they will compare and contrast that novel with primary source documents in their 8th grade class, in their social studies class.
We're also working on all 3 grade levels, helping students learn about personal money management skills. And they learn about having income, making a budget, their works within their income, saving, investing, credit, and these are skills that will help them become successful members of our community. Thanks.
As Erin had mentioned too, that they're working on personal finance. That's a lesson that we're going to share with the Eddy household as well, particularly Mrs. Eddy. I mentioned a little bit about our community outreach, and so we want to make sure that we open up our doors and allow some of these opportunities for students to experience and to hear from other people. And we've just listed off a few that we've had in the past that we'd like to invite back, and then always looking for others that we can bring in. Again, it's the experience that kids get that they go home and want to talk about. And it's not always in a book, and it's not always on the computer, but it's experience. And so we wanted to make sure that we continue to foster that now that we have a little bit more opportunity for that. We talk about school community, and so Coach Riddell is going to talk a little bit about that through our connections classes. Erica is also our connections chair.
Thank you, Adele. I'm the graphic physical education teacher here at Malcolm Bridge Middle School. I just want to take this time to tell you a little bit about the graphic physical education program and the opportunities it provides for our students. So at Malcolm Bridge Middle School, the graphic physical education program provides opportunities for our students to work with our students with disabilities to modify and adjust physical activity. Not only is this class important to help modify lessons to meet the needs of our students, but also provides them opportunities to form relationships with students that maybe they didn't have the opportunity to before. This program is so important because it definitely exemplifies what our motto here is at Malcolm Ridge Middle School with a positive climate culture.
And we talk about there's no other substitution than to knowing your students. And so as you heard Coach talk about that, the importance for us to make sure that we build those connections and relationships with kids. So talking about community, so you build that connection with them, you build it with experiences they get, but you also build it that they really understand and know their students. I ask Abby, we have been working really hard the last several years with positive behavior, and last year, come up, Abby. Abby Thurston teaches 7th and 8th grade science for us. Abby's been very big and a supporter for our PBIS program, and we'll have an opportunity for her to kind of talk about it a little bit. But we made some adjustments that we think have been a real hit. They were a hit last year, and we're excited about pushing those forward again this year. So, Abby.
So last year we knew that we needed a way to increase our positive behavior, and we knew it had to be digital because we couldn't touch anything. And so I went to a conference and learned about this app. It's a digital app, and automatically you get kids' attention because it's digital. They love digital. And so we reward students based on our 4 acronyms that we go by: kindness, leadership, respectfulness, and there's one more, and it's not in my head right this second, so I apologize for that. But our goal is to increase the classroom behavior and decrease infractions and referrals, and we've cut our referrals in half. We believe that a lot of it is due to this app, but also because of some of the spacing that we have done because of COVID, and so we have continued to implement that this year. The coolest part, though, is we used this new reward system, but needed to give kids a way to cash in their rewards, and so we came up with Malcolm Ridge Market, and it is a school store that we open once a month, and it is like nothing you've ever seen before. I've never seen kids get so excited. It's all student run, so we have a student leadership team that run it, and we've tried really hard to give students who are not involved in sports and other activities the opportunity to be leaders in this program. So overall, it's a huge hit, and it has totally decreased our behavior infractions. And I have 2 videos from students who were really excited to share with you about our school store, and that's on the next slide. Oh, is that okay?
Hi, my name is Yoyo, and I am a rising teacher at Malcolm Ridge Middle School. I'd like to talk to you today about why I think PBIS is such a great part of our school. I feel like PBIS really promotes positivity and encourages giving. It's a reward system, so we get a chance to earn points by being kind to others, following directions, and being respectful to our teachers and staff that work at our school. You're able to use your points to make purchases like buying candy in the school store, cake in the school store, and anything like that. You can buy pencils, rations, beef jerky, stuff like that.
That's a big seller, by the way.
And it's every single month throughout the school year. Those are multiple reasons why I love PBIS and how it's running at our school. Thank you for listening, and I hope you have the best day. Bye.
And then we have one more.
I'm Karen. I'm in the 7th grade at Malcolm Ridge Middle School. Hi, I'm Courtney, and I work this 7th grade at Malcolm Ridge Middle School. I like PBIS because it gives you a reward when you're kind or respectful to students or teachers. It pushes you to want to be kind, respectful, and not get into trouble so you can get candy and rewards like that. I like the school store because it's something fun to do in the mornings, and you get to meet a bunch of new people, and it's just something fun to do and help people out.
So I think that they do a great job of just showing how awesome and great our new rewards program is, and we're excited to continue implementing that this year. The kids are, I get emails all the time, do you need help with the school store? So Yeah, thank you for letting me share.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna be a seventh grade. I'm gonna be
So we appreciate the opportunity to kind of share with you. These are things, and it's a little bit different format for us, but we're proud because we identified some things that we know that we can make better for our students. And we always take those opportunities to build upon them. Again, so many things I think we're doing really well, but there's always room to improve upon. And these were just some of them. Okay, if y'all have any questions.
Everybody congratulated.
Thank you.
Looks great.
Appreciate it very much. Thank y'all.
Thank you.
Maybe next time bring some beef jerky.
The biggest seller we have.
Right. Next on the agenda is board chair report, and basically it's just a statement, and I won't be taking any questions on it from the press or here this evening. So it's very brief. 2016, Sanford University, where I attended a couple of years, celebrated its 175th academic year. President Andrew Westmoreland cited William Faulkner in his message to the university at his convocation. He said, "A monument says I got this far, but a footprint says this is where I was when I moved again. Footprints are more significant. They indicate that we were here, but we are headed somewhere else to use what we gained here. I came to this role almost 9 years ago, elected. At that time, I had set personal goals that served as a roadmap for me to be effective on the board as the chair. All of those goals have been realized or soon to be realized. Each year on the school board is different, with ups and downs. That initial roadmap was invaluable to me, and each year as the board crafted a unified vision for the future of Coney County schools and worked in conjunction with the superintendent as a governance team. I'm very proud of that work we have done to move our system forward. Recently, I had an unexpected health issue that gave me pause for reflection, and in consultation with my physician and family. And after I told my wife I wasn't going to do this. She'll beat me when I get home. Verbally. Just for the record. In consultation with my physician and family, and after much consideration and prayer, I've come to the conclusion to resign my responsibilities at this time. Accordingly, I've made the difficult decision to step down from my position on Post 1, Board of Education, effective September 1st. By stepping down effective September 1st, it gives the board additional time to transition to a new board chair and to begin planning the process for selecting a new board member. A special thanks should be extended to our superintendent, Dr. Branch, cabinet, principals, all the wonderful teachers and staff, like you heard here this evening, and the students, especially of Coney County Schools. I want to thank my colleagues here on the present Board of Education, as well as past members. It's been a pleasure to work with you on such important work, and I have come to value the professional, cordial, productive nature of our relationship. Coney County truly is a great community. We've been here since 1993, where community members have come to expect first-class education, and I have appreciated the opportunity to contribute to that reputation. Finally, almost there, I want to express my love and my thanks to my wife, Christy, my two sons, Mitchell and Alex, my daughter-in-law, believe it or not, my daughter-in-law, Tara, and our little granddaughter, Ann Margaret, have been a major support to me. I am hopeful the efforts that we have made as a board in the last 9 years will help others create their own lasting and meaningful footprints into the future. And I'm very thankful for this experience. And I want you all to know that I'll be a positive advocate for our county schools and for public education. May God's richest blessings be with all. I'll sign that letter tonight. Whatever happened to low key? Thank you. Thank you for indulging me. I'll take my whipping when I get home.
Well, I think we've got a few verbal whippings for you before you get out of here, Tom. So certainly
I'm not leaving.
yes,
That's
no,
all.
I know there's folks in the room that are going to want to respond to the service that you provided. So the board members will open the floor for you, and then
I did ask for this to be low key.
Yes, sir.
You know you can't get away without a few words from us, Tom. Tom, I want to thank you for your outstanding leadership and service to the Oconee County school system. Throughout your 9 years as our school board chair and also your many years as principal of Oconee Middle and Malcolm Bridge Middle, your strong leadership through both the challenges and celebrations has positively impacted the lives of students here in Oconee County. While serving as president of the Georgia School Board Association, you also impacted school boards throughout the state. I've had the pleasure of working with you during your entire tenure as school board chair, and together we've spent many meetings, shared countless phone calls, and many texts. You've always been professional, and our students' well-being and success has always been at the forefront of all your decisions. I'm grateful to have served with you, but more importantly, I feel fortunate to have you as a friend. I want to wish you and Christy all the best, and I want you to enjoy spending time with your sons, daughter-in-law, and that new grandbaby.
I appreciate it. She's wearing me out too.
When I retired from the University of Georgia, I started thinking a little bit and sort of going through my mind what I might be willing to spend some of my time on besides the leisure activities I was looking forward to. It wasn't too long after that when the vacancy came up on the board. And I thought about it a little bit, and I called Tom. I knew Tom from before, and I called Tom, and I talked to him for quite a while about it. During my professional career, I've had the opportunity to not only serve on a number of boards, but also work for several boards. And I have been part of boards that I thought were very constructive and effective and appropriate, and others that I would not put in that category. So I had my own perspective about that, and I called Tom, and I wanted to know a couple of things before I decided whether or not I should throw my hat in the ring, besides what he thought about that. But more importantly, I wanted to know what his goals were for the board, and maybe most importantly, what culture he wanted to create and chair over for the board. And he described for me the exact example of what I considered an effective, appropriate culture for a board to be. And so it was because of that I decided to get involved in this at all. So, Tom, I want to thank you for that advice, but mostly I want to thank you for the honesty you gave to me that day when you talked to me, and for the 9 years where you executed exactly what you said you were going to do. It's been a lot. It's made a great difference, and I think in the way this board and school system is operated, and you deserve a huge amount of credit for that, and thank you very much. And I join Kim in saying best of luck to you. Enjoy the next stage of your career, because you know it's not over. It's just change glide paths a little bit. So best of luck to you, and thank you for everything you've done.
Appreciate
Well, Tom, there's so much to be said, so I had to write things down so I wouldn't ramble, unlike Tim going off the cuff. But I just didn't know where to start because there's so much to say. But I wanted to start by thanking you for helping my husband be the man he is today. The time that you were his freshman football coach was definitely character building, according to him. So we appreciate that.
it. I was probably a little tough.
That's what he says. But he might have been a little soft before then. As I reflect on the countless lives you've touched and improved while serving as a teacher, coach, administrator, and board chair, it's hard to fathom how many lives you have impacted. You have been a great leader for us. You care deeply about doing what's best for students, the staff, and our community. That has been very apparent every day that I've served with you, and never more so than last year. As Kim mentioned, our state was blessed that you looked further than your own community and served as chair of the Georgia School Board Association, again furthering your positive influence on so very many. They say there's a great woman behind a successful man, but in your case, you and Christy just make a great team. The way you support and love each other is something to emulate. I often think it's such a small world, us working together, you having coached my husband in high school, and then since my grandmother was your very first teacher in kindergarten, I'm going to take a little credit for all that you've done for education. But seriously, I'm so thankful that this small world allowed our paths to cross. And I'm very thankful that you didn't keep your world small and instead influenced such a large number of people and communities that it's impossible to measure. And I am humble and so grateful that I got to serve under your leadership. Thank you.
The pleasure, rather, to know you as long as some of the other board members. But during the time that I have known you, I can tell that you're a man of high integrity, a great leader, and have a servant's heart. And I believe it was 1977, correct me if I'm wrong, when you first started working in the school system. So that's a pretty long tenure right there of serving.
Clark Central High School.
So 44 years, that's impressive. I appreciate all the service that you've given this community in this area and the state. It's a great mentor, and you led by example, and I appreciate that. Thank you.
Tom, you know, we're not done. The board chair superintendent relationship, I think, is one that has to be experienced to be completely understood. But I'm so pleased and honored that I've had the opportunity to experience it with you. Everything that's been said here is demonstrated, whether it's in front of this crowd or whether it's one-on-one. And I just appreciate the respect, love, and care that you've shown for our school system, for me personally, and for my family over the years. And I think you're a model for the nation. And I've got a few things here that have been accomplished in your tenure that I know that you will deflect and say it's the entire school system, but it begins with solid foundation, and that foundation is this governance team and the governance team that you lead. So what I have is that you provided 28 years of service to Oconee County Schools, 19 years as an administrator, 17 years as a principal, 4 at Oconee Middle, 13 at Malcolm Bridge Middle School. You've been trusted by the people of Oconee County and successfully elected 3 times to post 1, which serves as our board chair. In those 9 years serving as board chair, you've led 7 different BOE members, combinations, through 225 meetings. You were elected president of Georgia School Boards Association in 2017, leading over 1,100 board members from 180 districts throughout our state. You led our school district to be named the Georgia School Boards Association Governance Team of the Year in 2020, all while experiencing a 26% growth in student enrollment since 2013. When you took over, we had 6,746 students, and we have crested 8,500 students this year. Also, we have had the highest achievement in Oconee County Schools history under your leadership and guidance. We've increased the graduation rate to 97.7%, our SAT ranking to number 1, our ACT ranking to number 2, and increased advanced placement achievement rates to 86%. We've added high school courses at the middle school. We've increased career tech industry certified programs from 1 to 10. We've improved our technology significantly. Wireless networking, digital learning resources, online registration, a learning management system, and a one-to-one initiative that served us extremely well as we fought this pandemic. Interesting, when we looked at the human resources side, the individuals in this room and throughout our county may be surprised to know that under your guidance and leadership, you've approved the hiring of over 80% of the current leadership in this district. 10 of the current 11 principals, 13 of the 17 current assistant principals, and 48 of the 58 current central office leaders and staff. You've hired our first director of communications, launching social media platforms, launching the Villa program for community engagement, and we're stalwart in changing our board meeting times to 6 p.m. and beginning recording those meetings for easier community engagement and access. Provided social emotional counseling at each high school. Updated security cameras, visitor management, reunification systems, crisis alert, security vestibules in all of our schools, and access control to all of our schools. You have approved budgets totaling $634 million, and we're currently ranked the number 1 school system in Georgia for financial efficiency by the Georgia Department of Education, a title we've held since 2016, 2017, 2018, and 2019. You've implemented a $100 million building campaign to modernize and enhance instructional and athletic facilities. It's seen 4 additions, 10 renovations, 8 modifications, and 3 athletic enhancements, with more to come. 2 new constructions, and you've ensured that we've purchased over 48 new buses, $4.7 million. And none of those buses are over 20 years old. And probably most importantly to our student body, currently today, they're all air conditioned. So you have had a busy, busy tenure, and that's just a little bit of what you've done. So much of what you've done is unspoken and unseen and out of the limelight, which is how you lead and is a model for all of us. So thank you for your service. Thank you for your friendship. And I know you'll be departing this role September 1st, but we know where you are, and we hope that you will remain a friend and remain in contact.
Indeed, you do know where I am.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I didn't know you were going to take longer than Tim Burgess.
Well, I didn't know it was going to take that long either. We have one final individual that would like to share some remarks. I believe you know this gentleman for quite some time.
He almost didn't get hired.
That's a story I'm about to tell. Dr. Branch, board members, thank you for giving me the opportunity. It's not often you get to share what one of your mentors has meant to you, and having an opportunity to do that in public. 40 years worth of service to Georgia's public schools. Over 40 years, just simply amazing. I first had a chance to meet Mr. Odom at the Coney County Schools job fair over 15 years ago. From that moment until now, I've learned so much from you. From your cues that you would use at the job fair, to your process for planning a school year, to the minute intricacies of being a school leader. From body language to eye contact, to the importance of owning the tough decisions. Your mentorship has been extensive. Speaking of those job fair cues, Mr. Odom had signals to his teacher leaders and principals which relayed to them if he thought an applicant had potential. A year after being hired, I worked that job fair for him. He would touch his ear and use certain code words when he liked a candidate and he wanted the resume in a certain stack. They say that imitation is the sincerest form of flattery. As a principal, I use the same signals and codes during interviews. So how did I convince Mr. Odom to hire me so many years ago? That's a good story. After meeting him at the job fair, I received an interview to interview with him the following week. As a middle school principal, Mr. Odom had a way of getting students to spill the beans. Well, he used the same technique on me during the interview. Let's just say the interview did not go well. I did seemingly a nice job on the tour, but not so much on the interview. It was so bad that I didn't even bother to finish the application. Well, fortunately for me, Dr. Williams, the assistant principal at the time, called me later that week and told me that Mr. Odom had a strong interest in possibly hiring me, but I needed to finish the application. Mr. Odom has always told that story that the application was late because I was coaching basketball in the state playoffs. Truth be told, the application was late because I had shared my deepest, darkest secrets with Mr. Odom in his office, and I really didn't want to ever be called to his office ever again. One day I was teaching at Malcolm Bridge Middle School. I walked through the hallways only to find Mr. Odom there standing with a lack of frustration. I looked at him and said, "You all right?" He said, "I guess. I just had one of the worst teaching observations I've ever seen in my career today." I guess what Mr. Odom had forgot is he had observed me about 8:30 that morning. And that I might be connecting the dots between his observation and his frustration. I never found out who did so poorly, but let's just say I didn't sleep till I got the observation sheet. Mr. Odom, one of the things I respect the most about you is your calming sense and emotional composure. I think of two times where this was displayed. The first was watching how you handled the death of one of our faculty members, Lisa Anderson, one of my 6th grade teaching teammates. I remember walking to your office at 6 a.m. the next morning. I'll never forget how you looked in the face. You had that intense sadness. The way you approached the faculty at the faculty meeting that morning, the way you spoke to our middle school students, and the way you displayed your leadership at the funeral. Your professionalism in that moment was exceptional and admired. The second place where you displayed the emotional composure and calming sense is when you were the interim principal at North County High School. With the faculty, staff, and students in what some might describe as an uproar, you went in, calmed the seas, and refocused the team. On a personal level, I'll never forget when you walked down to my classroom to get me on the phone with Miss Thomas when she offered me an assistant principal's position. I remember how we celebrated in the workroom. Then a year later, I found myself as the principal at Cody Middle. I was always told to give Mr. Odom a call to discuss any challenging situations. The first time that I called, I had a situation, and all he did was laugh. I don't remember the advice, I don't remember the situation, but I do remember the lingering laugh. And just when I think our paths had crossed for the final time, you become our board chair. The reassurance of just having you in the position for so long and your connectivity in our community has been priceless. So on behalf of our leaders, thank you. Thank you for your support, your care, your concern, and your love. You've been a treasure and will truly be missed.
Thank you. You were almost a day late. I wanted you real bad.
The school system now has a token of appreciation for you, Mr. Odom.
Not know what love is.
And I will read it before we present it to you. Mr. Thomas Odom, Oconee County Board of Education, 2013 to 21. In honor of your years of leadership, service, and dedication to the children of Oconee County. We thank you for serving for 9 years as Oconee Board of Education Chair, over 40 years as an educator, and representing Oconee County as President of the Georgia School Boards Association. Thank you for making a difference that will be realized for generations to come.
I have to hold it up like children. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
This is a little more than a bark. All these things that you listed last culminate this. I did not expect this. I told Christy I just wanted to get in and out. But all of these things that you listed, they didn't come without pain. And the public didn't see some of that pain. And it's not for you to see, but we took little bites of the apple every year. And some of the things we did, but it wasn't me. It never is me. It's a lot of people. And that's what it's all about. So thank you. Now, is that it?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And I am extremely grateful. Let's see. And every board member here has contributed something along the way. We never agreed on everything, but we found a way to get to the promised land on some decisions. And, I just tell you, each one has their own, as they pass through, they have their own talent, their own ability. And it's just finding the mesh for those abilities and talents. And you take like the Villa program, it was sheer chance that we saw that at the Georgia School Board's meeting. Sheer chance. And Amy and I went and saw it, and I said, this is something we need to do. And it took a year to convince Jason, because he was tackling a lot of stuff at that time, but in a year, we were able to do it. Just little things like that. And, and a lot of you guys, y'all do the work day in and day out. We're here 2 times a month. Well, I'm here 3. But, y'all do the day in, day out stuff, and you're to be commended. It's just a really exceptional job. Now, Liz Harlow, Business Services, you're going to bail me out of this.
Good evening, board members. Business Services has 7 items of information for tonight's meeting. The first item is the cash balance report for July. The second item of information is a list of all the vendor payments in June. The next item of information is a list of all vendors paid in July. The fourth item of information is the budget report for July. Revenue and expenditures are what we would be expected for the first month for the fiscal year. The fifth item of information is the ELOS collections report. The rolling average is 12.1% over the previous year, and this month's collections are 26% over the previous period last year. The next item of information is the board report for ELOS 5, and as every month, the revenues and expenses have been updated as of July 31st. As requested at the July board meeting, we have noted the remaining bond payments by calendar year. The last item of information is a report on the school district's federal grants. This is a new report that Business Services will be updating each month. As a reminder, these grants are reimbursable grants, meaning that expenses must first be incurred and paid, and only then can funds be requested for reimbursement. And that concludes my report, unless there are any questions.
Yeah, one question. Thanks for the report on the federal funds. That's a very interesting report and very timely, especially given what we've been dealing with financially for the last year. One question on that report. On the ESSER 3 funds, there's a pretty large balance still available to us for the year. Can you talk just a minute about the eligible types of expenses that money can be used for?
Sure. Some of the eligible types of expenses that we can use this grant for are technology, instructional software, online learning platforms, and learning recovery.
Learning recovery. Tell me, what does that acronym mean?
learning recovery that might be best described by Dr. Buck.
So that would include some of the summer programming that we did for our students, the camps that Mr. Eddy mentioned, and then continuation of that throughout the school year.
Okay, great, thank you.
Anyone else? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, the next on our agenda is public communication. And I have a protocol to read. How many do we have?
We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and you're right there.
Okay.
Sir.
All right. And this is it, and it's been modified a little bit. So, don't get too anxious about it. The board allows 3 minutes for those who sign up at the meeting. You must be a current resident of Oconee County to address the board. Please state your name, address, and topic. The board requests that you refrain from making any disparaging remarks about school system personnel. Generally, there will be no response to comments or questions posed by citizens at the meeting. All comments and questions will be received and taken under advisement by the board. However, any member of the board shall be free to respond and make public comments if he or she elects to do so. Okay.
Yes, sir. Our first speaker is Mr. Richard Turner.
Okay, thank you.
So can I stand here?
Come to the podium, please, and state your name and address.
Yes, sir. Well,
I'm Richard Turner, live at 1211 Windsor Drive, been in Oconee County since 1984. Both my kids are grown, have graduated from high school at Oconee, and doing very well in life. I really appreciate everything the school system had. We just got lucky moving into Oconee County, and the school system lifted us up. I'm here mainly today to talk about my appreciation for the board of making the mask, wearing of the mask, the decision of the parents and the child, instead of mandating it like my daughter now is having to put up with in Savannah. We just spent last week helping her get her first week of school in. My granddaughter, 2 days in first grade, got in the car with me. She's totally exhausted, had a splitting headache, and both days when I picked her up, it was like that. And I know it's from having to rebreathe too much of her CO2, the bacteria in her mouth, inundating her mask. She wears the same mask every day. We tried to talk to my son and daughter, my daughter and son-in-law about, changing out her masks and everything. Well, they've got two other children, so it's pretty much. But anyway, I just wanted to voice my appreciation for y'all standing up for liberty and the individual and giving us the option, and at least not me now, because I don't have the kids in school anymore, but I know the parents that do really did appreciate it. I just want to thank you for that.
Our next speaker is Jaylene Cat.
Good evening. I'm here regarding the COVID policies, and I just want to thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is Jaylene, and I'm a mother to a Coney Middle School in 7th and a High Shoals 4th grader. My name may be familiar as I've written in for support, and this issue is extremely important to our family. I want to emphasize, I'm sorry to be emotional, the support for the plan as a whole. And thank you again for the choice that you've given parents to make the best decision for our own kids. My family has opted to vaccinate, and I strongly emphasize that that was a personal choice and should stay a personal choice, and as a decision with the school, and if it's a decision with the schools. My family did mask last year by choice until teachers were fully vaccinated. We weren't entirely comfortable, but we did it because there was a lot unknown, and we wanted to keep our teachers and community comfort level in mind. We also finished school not masked successfully with no major increases. What I can tell you about last year that seems to be dismissed and that some parents might not be aware of, but some are starting to realize, is that my children experience a lot of health issues. And there's not a lot of research out there for masking our children 7+ hours a day, 5 days a week. My family's personal experience is my children suffered headaches, migraines, skin issues on their face, and had strep twice. We saw local doctors and were told we were seeing more of this due to masking. Our masks were washed daily, they were the appropriate size. Some say doctors and nurses do it all day long, and I do realize that they do this. But they are also 1, adults, 2, medical masks that are frequently changed. They do not compare to our children. Once we stopped masking, especially for long periods of time, those issues went away and they're gone. And while some say, isn't it worth it to live? It's a small sacrifice. Do it for others. I say, isn't the quality of life and my kids' overall health? Children should not suffer daily for a 0 to 0.2% chance of mortality and a 1.5% chance to a 3.5% chance of being hospitalized. This doesn't even begin to cover the emotional and physical aspects. There is not one published study that is controlled that shows the long-term effects of children wearing masks for long hours. Separately, excessive quarantines also often result in kids home several times and never became positive. These numbers that I am quoting are from the American Academy of Pediatrics, posted on August 5th. And also the CDC continues to say it's extremely rare that children will have severe or be hospitalized or death. I just want to thank you again, and we'd like to return to a normal, all activities and no masking. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Rebecca McCants.
Hi, I'm Rebecca McCants. I live at 1160 Fieldstone Road. I just really wanted to put a face with my email. This is my daughter Liza. She really wants to speak too. We just want to say that we support your decision for keeping the schools open and for allowing extracurricular activities, for allowing everything that could happen for children to be a part of the community, whether it be people come in and volunteer. That's something that's near and dear to my heart. I like to be in the school and be involved. And I'm able to do that now that I've graduated with my second master's degree. So we just are really grateful for you keeping the schools open, not mandating masks, and not mandating vaccines, because there are vaccine injuries in the world that people do partake of. So, Liza, do you want to say something? No, she's shy. Thank you very much.
Yeah, our next speaker is Akila. I can't read the last name. Please pronounce it, please, when you come to this podium.
Hello, my name is Dr. Akila Tomingas. I live at 1061 Hearthstone Way. I'm a pediatrician in this community. My husband, Dr. Christopher Tomingas, is also a physician in this community. But most importantly, we're the parents of 4 young children, 3 of which are students in the Oconee County School District and 2 which are too young to receive the COVID vaccine. I wanted to discuss today the recommendations of 3 of the biggest medical communities, the CDC, the American Academy of Pediatrics, and the Georgia Department of Public Health regarding K-12 education during the COVID pandemic, who all agree that in order to keep kids in person, which is what I think we all want, definitely want to keep our kids in school, but in order to do that safely this school year, we should have extremely important mitigations in place to decrease the spread of COVID-19. Those mitigations include recommending universal indoor masking for all people that walk into a school building, regardless of their vaccination status. They also recommend continuing appropriate social distancing, frequent hand washing, as well as appropriate contact tracing and monitoring of infection rates within the school system. This is even more important because of the rapid rise of infections, hospitalizations, and deaths due to the COVID variant, primarily Delta. Last year we had the Mask Up campaign, which, based on the numbers that were presented to parents, it appeared to be fairly successful. There's still time to implement these guidelines for Oconee, And the American Academy of Pediatrics recommends that school systems recognize how quickly things can change, as well as how we need to adapt to those changes. Although COVID rates and hospitalizations were low in 2020 and the beginning of 2021 for children, the more contagious and more severe Delta variant is affecting children at much higher rates. This variant also proves the importance of vaccination, as more than 98% of COVID patients are unvaccinated. And so our most vulnerable population, which is children under 12, who are currently ineligible to receive the vaccine, are at a high risk this school year. So I'd like us all to work together to get through this school year in person by requiring indoor masking for all. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Dr. Kelly Montgomery.
Good evening, members of the board, Dr. Branch. My name's Dr. Kelly Montgomery. I'm a pediatric physician. I live at 1216 Boulder Ridge Lane in Bishop. I have a son who's a second grader at High Shoals Elementary School. We've been very happy with our experience there. And as we begin the 2021-2022 school year, we have excitement of returning to learning in our routines and schedules, along with the apprehension of still living in the shadow of COVID-19. I'm a parent anxious to see my kid back in school and return to normalcy. I too want to go back to no masks, but I don't think we're there yet. My role as a pediatrician, I care for children. I'm a physician in Georgia who is starting to see COVID numbers creep back into our community. I had COVID positive cases last week and today. This COVID-19 Delta variant is different from the initial strain we were introduced to back in March of 2020. And the strain that we did our 2020-2021 school recommendations for. This Delta variant is more contagious, more easily transmissible. It's more contagious from kids, and kids are getting sicker from this variant. We're seeing hospitalizations in children rise. And while the vaccine will keep you out of the hospital, it doesn't protect you from spreading COVID to others if you happen to carry the virus either symptomatically or asymptomatically. I am concerned that all the steps our schools and our school district took last year to mitigate the spread of COVID-19 have been downgraded. As my colleague Dr. Dominguez presented, the American Academy of Pediatrics, of which we are both members, wrote an open letter to Georgia superintendents. She highlighted some of the points. I commend the Board of Education and Dr. Branch. I think last year the Mask Up Oconee campaign was very successful. We see that we didn't have any disruptions to learning last year. I think kids, especially younger kids, were easily influenced to wear masks comfortably, and there were safe places to take breaks from masks. We didn't have to disrupt learning, and we didn't have that many cases. We need to consider the science and go back to that. Case numbers are rising. Oconee County positivity rate updated today, was above 10%. We are back in a pandemic state. Please do not let go of our mitigation strategies that you all put in place and so successfully put in place last year. We all have a common purpose, you as educators and me as a physician. We have a common daily intention to care for children, to protect children, and to reduce harm. It's common ground. We want the same things. Please, my family is just as desperate as everyone else to get back to normal. I think the fastest way to do that is to mask up, get through this, and come out on the other side, where we've kept as many people as healthy as possible. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Our last speaker is Ms. Julie Mock.
Hi, I'm sorry I'm dressed so casually. Wasn't expecting to speak, but here I am. Julie Mock, I live at 1110 Summit Circle in Watkinsville, and I know I've thanked you. I thanked you at the end of the year, I thanked you by email, and then I'm here to thank you again, just for your discernment and using, such good judgment and whether or not to send our kids back to school. In person and, with masks optional. I think, obviously the CDC, the American Pediatric Association, all of these organizations are obviously profoundly political anymore. So it's very difficult to trust any of that information, but when you go back and you just look at the statistics now and the history, you really went out bold last year because we didn't know anything about it. And now we have a history and we know that kids are at very, very little risk of this disease, and especially from, having anything major from it or from passing it on to anybody else. We didn't wear masks all last year. We haven't worn masks. My daughter did wear a mask for 1 week to try out for color guard. She wanted it so bad. I told her it was her decision. She wore it. She got not a strep infection in her throat, but a staph infection. And the urgent care doctor said that they were very common over the past year. And it was, I'm sure it was from the mask. She wasn't sick the rest of the year. She didn't get COVID. I had COVID, but she didn't get COVID. But she got a staph infection in her throat from wearing a mask for several hours. So just thank you. I just don't think that kids should, carry this imaginary burden, social well-being. We shouldn't put that burden on our children. There are age groups that, need to be much more careful than our children do. Another thing, I went back at the end of last year and asked the Department of Transportation with Georgia to send me their data by age group on deaths and transportation accidents. And actually, over the past year, even with COVID out there, children were 7 times more likely to die in an automobile accident than from COVID in the state of Georgia. So I think that's important to know. And Oconee County, I followed the data in the Northeast Health District through the pandemic. And Oconee County stayed in the bottom 2 for cases per 100,000 in the entire Northeast Health District, which I believe is made up of 8 or 9 counties. So we were in the bottom 2 that whole time with schools wide open, masks optional. It was the right decision. Our kids didn't lose a day of education because of it, because of you. And so I'm just very grateful for that. I'd really like to get back to normal, everything, events, everything back to normal. I had an 8th grader and a 12th grader last year, and they did miss out on a few things. I'd like the kids this year to get back to normal so that we can argue about Chromebooks again. And God bless you. Thank you for your service so much. It's humbling to listen to everything that you've accomplished, and we appreciate you very much. Thank you.
Mr.
Thank you all. Moving on, we do have some action items. We have a recommendation on Dr. Branch on surplus vehicles.
Yes, sir. We recommend approval of the surplus vehicles as presented.
Okay, you've heard the superintendent's recommendation. Do we have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
If you have any questions, sorry. If you have any questions, just ask. Motion made by Mr. Ransom.
Second.
Second, Mr. Burgess. All in favor, please raise your hands. Passes 5-0. If we could, I'd like to group B and C together.
Yes, sir. Recommend approval of the field trips as presented.
Okay, you've heard the superintendent's recommendation. Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
So moved. Ms. Parrish.
Second.
Second, Ms. Argo. All in favor, please raise your hand. Passes 5-0. And last is competitive interscholastic activities. Dr. Branch.
Yes, sir. This policy's been on the table for review, and we'd recommend removing it and putting it into action at this time.
Okay. Do we have a motion to approve?
Move approval.
Mr. Burgess moves for approval.
Second.
Second, Mr. Ransom. All in favor, please raise your hands. And that does pass 5-0. And anyone in our gathering here this evening, if you have any communication that you'd like to express about our agenda items, this is the opportunity to do so. Hearing none, we do have a need for executive session this evening, so we need a motion to go into executive session.
I make a motion the board adjourn to executive session to discuss or deliberate upon personnel matters as described on an affidavit that will be attached to the minutes.
Ms. Argo, thank you, has made that motion.
Second.
We have a second, Ms. Parrish. All in favor, please raise your hands. That passes 5-0. Thank you all.